Good morning. All week long, we've been talking about grief and mourning because our nation is in a state of grief and mourning. We take this tactic because of the pain that we saw a weekend ago and that we still experience this week because of the things that are going on around us. Someone says, well, that's their business. No, it's all of our business because we are not alone. As John Donne says, no man is an island. We are all part of one another. Paul picks up on that and tells us we're all part of the body of Christ. And so as we've been talking about mourning and grieving and all the feelings that come with that, many are saying, oh, you should be over it already. Many are saying, oh, we're in the same boat. No, we're not all in the same boat. And no, we do not all grieve the same. Because of our cultures, because of our upbringing, because of the places we live, we all grieve differently. Some people grieve out loud. Some people grieve silently. Some people go out and paint themselves. Others disappear because of the pain that goes on inside of us. But remember, those basic stages of grief are the same for all of us. And as we walk through them, we have to realize we're not in the same boat because we don't all grieve at the same time. So remember, denial is there. Then there's bargaining and blaming, accusation, because we all want to know the answer to the question, why? And then there's anger and depression, those things that come upon us when we're not sure why and where they come from. And then eventually there's acceptance. But through all of these stages, all of these things that go on in our lives, the Father is there as a constant reminder that He loves us, that He cares for us, that He speaks into our lives, into our hearts. Throughout this COVID-19 crisis, at the church here, we've received many thank you letters, many notes thanking us, not just for the gifts we've been blessed to give them, but for the ways in which God has spoken into their lives and blessed them and encouraged them. People will send us notes saying, oh, thank you for the devotions each morning because they make me get out of bed to know that God is still here. Yes, we're not all in the same boat, but we're experiencing these things very differently. Realize that, understand that, but the constant peace in all of this is the Father speaking to our hearts. A few days ago, someone sent me this wonderful email. Author's unknown, but I want to share it with you this morning because it goes with what we're talking about as we grieve. Because we do not all grieve in the same way. We don't all mourn in the same way. As I said, we're not all in the same boat. This says, we're not in the same boat, but we're in the same storm. But we're not in the same boat. Your boat, your ship could be shipwrecked. Mine may not be, or vice versa. For some, this quarantine is optimal, a moment of reflection, of reconnection. That's an easy flip-flop. You can do that with coffee, with cocktails, over the internet. That's easy. For others, this is a time of desperation, a time of financial crisis, of time, of family insecurity. For some who live alone, they love the endless loneliness and isolation. While others, it is peace and rest, time with their family, the mother, the children, time to reflect. Then, with the $600 weekly increase in unemployment, some bringing in more money to their households as if they were working. Someone said to me, oh, I should get laid off so that I can have more money. So the issue isn't about more money. Others are saying, are working more hours for less money and are getting less pay because of job cuts, loss of sales. Some families have received $3,400. That's a family of 4. Other families of 4 have received nothing from the stimulus checks. Same storm, different boats. Some were concerned about getting a certain candy last Easter, while others were concerned if there was enough bread, milk, or eggs for the weekend. Still others want to go back to work because they don't qualify for unemployment and are running out of money. Still others want to break those who break the quarantine. One of my cousins sent me a note and said, will people please understand that the guy who breaks the quarantine to go to Home Depot to get a gallon of paint is probably trying to keep himself busy, to deal with his own loneliness, his own frustration. Same storm, different boat. Some people are spending 3 to 4 hours a day helping their children with online schooling, while others are spending 3 or 4 hours a day to educate their children on top of having to work 10 to 12 hours that day. Same storm, different boat. Some have experienced a near death from the virus. Some have already lost people from it. Some are not sure if their loved ones will be able to bounce back from this. Others don't believe this is a big deal at all. Others believe that this is a political hack, that these deaths are just made up. Some have faith in God, that God will do miracles during this year. Still others say that the worst is still yet to come. Same storm, different boat. Some friends, we're not in the same boat, but we're going through a time when our perceptions and needs are completely different. Each of us will emerge in our own way from this storm, but it is important to see beyond what is seen at first glance. Not to just look, but to actually see. Why? Because we're in the same storm, different boat. Now, you don't have to go very far to understand this story from a biblical perspective, because you will recall that Jesus is in the back of a boat asleep, and there's a squall going on the lake, and everyone is afraid. Typically, as we read that story, we see Jesus in a boat by himself with the 12 disciples. But no, there are other boats there with him. The disciples are afraid, like we would be. And so they're tossed and torn, just like every piece that I've read here in this story. We're tossed to and fro. We're uncertain. We don't have stable ground. But the disciples wake up. Jesus, wake up. We're dying. Don't you care? And Jesus, of course, does. And what does he do? He stands up in the boat, something he's not supposed to do, and says, hush, be still. And then two things happen. One is the wind and the waves stopped. The second is they immediately were at their destination. What just happened? Jesus, the master of life and sea, made a command. Jesus was there. The disciples went to Jesus. The Father tells us to do the exact same thing. In each one of these scenarios, same storm, different road. We go to Jesus. Now imagine you're there. You're not in the boat with Jesus. You're in these other boats. And you're freaking out. What do we do? What do we do? Can we bail water? Can we row harder? What do we do to get out of here? Because there's other boats there. Because it's the same storm, different boats. But what does Jesus do? He calms the sea for everyone. He speaks life into everyone. He brings everyone there to safety in him. So, as this concludes here and says, don't go with what's at first glance. Look and really see. Look and really see what God is doing around you. Because someone next to you is in the same boat, trying to row harder, trying to make it. And the Father has blessed you to be able to bless them. Because we're in the same storm, different boats. And then on top of that, yes, they're same storm, different boats, same God. who loves us, who says, peace, be still, and brings us to safety, brings us to himself. Precious Lord Jesus, Lord, thank you. Lord, for whomever it was that wrote this story, because, Lord, yes, we are in the same storm, different boats. Lord, we grieve differently because we are different. Yet, Father, you are the one, Jesus, who loves us and speaks to us. You are the same God who calmed the waters on the Sea of Galilee. Lord, you're the same God who's at work here amongst us now. So, Father, I pray for my dear friends that, Lord, you'd speak into their hearts, minds, and souls, Lord, and help them to be still before you while, Lord, you calm the storms in our lives. While, Lord, while you speak to our grief, our angst, our mourning. These things, Lord Jesus, we pray in your holy, your mighty, your blessed name, Father. Amen.